Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von hinten an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Hi, welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. I'm your host, Eli, joined by Joey and Pedro. Today, we're going to be talking about the 4 transfers that may have already happened. This is being recorded Sunday, February 2nd, but we also have a special announcement. This weekend, we're going to be having a live stream where we're going to be watching, all 5 Dortmund Dispatch hosts are going to be watching Stuttgart take on the best club in the world, Borussia Dortmund, and we hope to have you all with us. So thank you if you joined. You can find us on our YouTube as well as Twitch. But we'll have everything set up by the time you hear this. But anyway, how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, it's good weekend. Happy that we are finally getting a chance to talk about a Dortmund win for a change. How about you, Pedro?
No, same here. Still managed to hang out a lot this weekend. All my teams have won this weekend, which is rare for me. I haven't know what's a win for a while, especially in Dortmund with the Bundesliga. So it's nice to be back in winning manners.
Well, we got to witness this weekend the greatest 11v11 senior football manager in Borussia Dortmund's history. 2 wins from 2 games with 11 guys on the pitch. Mike Tolberg, let's start it off quick with a quote from the GOAT. The club means a lot to me. I've been here for a long time. After 3 points, we're now on 7 points. The team is alive and kicking, and I'm incredibly happy. I just hope that they continue like this and can build on that. So there was a lot said by some absolute morons like Didi Hamann about Tolberg celebrating with the fans. Do you guys want to dignify that, or how did you feel when you watched Tolberg celebrate with the fans?
I mean, I hardly even want to acknowledge those comments because, I mean, have you seen the season that Dortmund has been having? Have you seen the beginning of 2025 for this club? And looking at Tolberg and what position he's in, he's been the U19 coach. This was kind of an opportunity of a lifetime for him. He seized it, and he got a couple of really strong wins. And okay, maybe we looked a little shaky at times, but I mean, that was a deserved win against Heidenheim, and Tolberg 100% deserves to celebrate that. He deserves that chance to go celebrate with the traveling Dortmund fans. I think that's the least he deserves for stepping in and bringing some stability to this club.
No, yeah, same here, man. And I even made that on one of my points in my takeaways article. Like I even said in my title, like Tolberg's celebration is justified and well deserved. Because I mean, he made the props to celebrate like that. He gave Dortmund first win in the Bundesliga in 2025. Like Sahin didn't manage to do that. And at the same time, like even the comment from Didi Hamann, he said when it was clear that Niko Kovac was coming, he said, "It's not about me." Everything he said in the press conferences, he refuted today. When I saw the pictures, I thought of myself, it's about you. And it's not about him. And I found it embarrassing. Like the way that he described and said it's embarrassing, man. The guy has the right to celebrate a victory, like for a club that has been struggling all season. Like we have the right to have fun sometimes. And even his celebration, it reminded me a little bit of Jurgen Klopp. Like I'm not saying they're the same guy, but like the way he celebrated, like I just saw Jurgen Klopp there, like the personality Jurgen Klopp in that. So it's good to have a guy that manages to like take the best out of the team in those dark times, and at the same time just to manage to cheer fans up with his vibe. So now I think it was well deserved, and the comments were way out of proportion.
Yeah, Heidenheim is also not like the farthest away day that Borussia Dortmund will face this season, but the fans absolutely have been let down by some performances this season. And so to see a manager care, and that was not faked emotion, that wasn't about anything other than just the pure joy of winning. And this is a guy that usually probably manages in front of a crowd of a few hundred. And to be in front of all these people, to show the appreciation and to show that he cares just as much as every single one of those fans is something that Borussia Dortmund fans have been begging to see. And I think I can speak for all of us and say we really appreciated seeing someone in the dugout who cares as much as us. And like whether he goes on to get a full time senior job with Borussia Dortmund or any other club, I just hope that uh, his career continues and he finds happiness and success. And if he potentially comes back to Dortmund after a successful stint elsewhere, I would be very happy to see that because this is a guy, everything he said from day one was perfect to me. And you could see in his celebrations that he cares about the club and about being successful and knows what it means to play and manage for Borussia Dortmund. But moving on, what did you think about the tactical setup of this match, Pedro?
Well, that was really similar to Shakhtar's, obviously. Like, I think the base formation in possession was that 3-2-5 with Bensebaini playing the double pivot with Sabi. And for me, again, like I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but Ben Sebaini, what a great performance in the midfield, and Ryerson as well. I think both fullbacks really caught my eye in this performance. But I was really confused, especially with Pascal Gross. I thought his position was a little bit like he had the freedom to move around. Sometimes I saw him as some kind of left midfielder, like supporting Jimmy Gittens, but at the same time, I didn't see him really contributing in possession and with the ball and creating chances. So I was a little confused in what his role actually was. And then when he inverted back into the double pivot, he played a little bit better. But I think the setup was pretty similar to Shakhtar's, but it was a little more aggressive in terms of high press. It was really like counter press and really suffocating Heidenheim to get the possession as soon as possible. And I think especially in the first half, they did that pretty decently and in a very consistent basis. I think it was really like a good performance overall. It wasn't uh extremely like uh I don't know, take my breath away, but at the same time I was glad that the team has been able to be more consistent and I could see better performances from the individuals. The second half was a little more like stressful than it should, especially with the first the goal considered right after the second. Dortmund managed to score with Maxi Bayer, but overall, I think was pretty consistent, and I think a good job overall from Mike Tolberg, especially in the last two matches against Shakhtar and Heidenheim.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty good analysis, Pedro. I'm going to work backward on this one a little bit. In that, for one thing, I think that the Heidenheim's goal was a bit of a wake-up call to Dortmund. In typical Dortmund fashion, we can't just see the match out, and we have to make it more complicated for ourselves than it needs to be, and that's what happened. But I think that the way that the defense kind of became more compact and organized, it was a really mature finish to the match, especially when Heidenheim was really pushing for an equalizer. So really happy with that aspect of it. Um, Earlier in the game, I think that our wing play struggled a little bit. Um, Heidenheim did a really good job of marking our wingers. Jamie Giddens had a few good runs, but he had one pretty good shot at the near post. But we're a little overdue for one of those classic Jamie Giddens goals, and they just would not let him get that shot off. And I also think, I mean, Adeyemi struggled for when he was on, and Duranville couldn't quite get in the game. But what I did notice, which has been a huge improvement, especially in the last couple of matches, is what just feels like some cohesion within the midfield. Like Brandt knows where the players around him are going. Girassi is getting himself in positions to score, not just score, but he's having shots on target. He's getting on the end of chances. I mean, there's so much that can be said, I think, for just the chance creation in the attacking midfield in both of these games, and it's not perfect. It's not as good as we have seen it in the past, but it is a huge improvement from certainly those first 3 or 4 matches of the year. So I think there are a lot of really promising signs, and happy with the stability that Tilburg brought in. But I think it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens moving forward, with Kovac at the helm.
Yeah, like what Pedro and Joey a little bit as well talked about. I think the rest defense was what stood out to me in this match. Even the first two performances under Tolberg, they were not to this level in terms of the rest defense. Every time we turned the ball over, we had someone immediately there to put a little bit of pressure on the ball, and force them to turn back towards their own goals, slow the fast break down a little bit, slow down these transition moments. And sometimes we won the ball back right away. Sometimes we didn't. But even when we didn't, we were just in the right areas, doing the right things. And that type of discipline is something we haven't seen all season. Nuri Sahin like really tricked everyone into believing that this squad was mid-table. If we see this squad perform in 3 matches like they just did under a manager who has never managed in the top flight, like we can expect some big things coming in and should expect some much better things to come from Niko Kovac going forward. And I think we can be excited for the future, honestly. And we have a lot of signings to talk about at the end of the show, so I'm going to try and get us through some of the things a little bit quicker. But let's talk a little bit about Karim Adeyemi getting subbed on and then subbed off in the second half. Joey, what did you kind of make of that?
I mean, it's never a good. I mean, unless it's an injury or something, which is a different kind of bad sign. It's never good when a player who is introduced as a substitute is then taken off before the end of the match, more or less. And I don't think. I mean, this was much below par for what we expect of a Karim Adeyemi performance. And I mean, we can only really speculate as to what exactly was going on, because I think there was a Tolberg quote, but it was rather vague and cryptic. But just from what I witnessed, it felt like Adeyemi, he lost every one-on-one sprint race that he got into with a player from Heidenheim. He lost. And whether it's chasing the ball, whether it's him running with the ball, he did not exhibit the kind of speed and agility that we know he's capable of and that we're used to seeing. And I just think in nearly every aspect of this match he was below par. So I don't really think taking him off was the wrong decision, especially when I think it was like the 87th or 88th minute. We needed a little bit more. I've already used the word stability like 3 times, but that's the first one that comes to mind. I think Adeyemi was being dispossessed a little bit too frequently, and he just wasn't getting on the ball.
A little more control, per se?
Yes, a little bit more control. Thank you. So I'm not too worried about Adeyemi in the long run. I think he's made his he has made it clear to the club that he at least desires a future here in the short term, maybe long term. But unless we got to get a couple better performances out of Adeyemi, because that it was fairly abysmal.
Yeah, much better
Yeah.
in the midweek for me. I don't want to be too harsh on his performance because, like, in a singular appearance, like, yes, especially as a substitute, you should be winning disproportionately more of your duels. But in such a short sample size, like, there's a lot of variance. Like, there was a cutback he played to Guirassy that I very easily think he could have done very well with. And then there was another moment where Guirassy, I believe, had him on the right open, and the ball got given to, I think, either Ryerson or it was shot. I don't remember off the top of my head. But like in these 2 instances, those were the 2 most noticeable moments for me where Adeyemi could have really improved his performance and he just didn't get the ball, or his pass didn't quite come off on the fault of someone else, or a pass to him didn't come off on the fault of someone else. So I think like he was still in good positions, but it was very far from his best performance. And if something happened behind the scenes where he did something he wasn't supposed to. Like, we can't speculate on that. But it kind of seems like he wasn't in the 11, and then maybe he was sulking about it, and he was not in the right headspace to perform his best, and that can happen once or twice in a season. And like, he got sent a message, and it's very impactful, and it's very mature and brave of Mike Tolberg, in my opinion, to make that type of decision when Nuri Sahin was watching guys make business decisions and not chase after turnovers and transition moments. And he was not pulling the trigger to take some of these guys out in far worse performances. So, but now that it's a different manager, and it will be a different manager again quite soon, you can't really compare and criticize past actions of a guy that we thankfully have fired. Excuse me.
No, yeah, I think it's an interesting debate because when managers usually do that, I think they might have a problem depending on the player because if the player has a big influence in the squad and in the locker room, that could be a problem for the manager and for the internal communications within the team. Like I even Joey was talking about the quote. I have it right here. I told him, aka Adeyemi, that no one is above the team and that everyone should give everything. I had the feeling that Karim was in top fit. He started the first two games under me and he did well. And it's not like he was throwing Adeyemi under the bus in any manner, but it's not like he wasn't honest about why he changed Adeyemi mid game. So he was pretty honest about it, and I gotta respect that. But at the same time, those kind of quotes can be dangerous, like when you're exposing a player, especially in front of the press in a press conference. Because I personally think that those kind of moments should be inside the locker room. Like if you have something to say it in the locker room directly to the player, and things, and that's end of subject. That's done. But I mean, considering that he's not going to be the manager long term, I mean, I don't think that's a big problem. I think if he were to be the manager, that'd be something to keep an eye on. But considering that he's not going to be a manager, and it was really due to Karim's performance, which wasn't really as good as we expect from him, and especially as he had a good performance against Shakhtar, I think was justified. He had a reason for that, and props for Tolberg to being honest about it. But I mean, if we gotta keep an eye on that for Kovac because he had previous issues with players, and if he starts throwing players under the bus, I think we might have a problem. But at the same time, I think it's okay, and I think Karim is mature enough to understand that he wasn't at his top form that which we expect from him.
Yeah, and I think that quote keeps it vague enough where you're not like adding to speculation. Like, you prevent speculation by giving like a reason, but it's so vague that like that could mean any number of things. Like, maybe he wasn't sprinting hard enough in training. Maybe his physical numbers were down, and then he wasn't sprinting in the game. Like, we don't know exactly what happened, but they kept it in house enough. It was a good quote. It cuts off the speculation. Hopefully, Adeyemi takes it as a little bit of motivation, a little kick in the bum, and he can be on and off next game and be performing well. Maybe back in the 11 if his performances in training merit that. Because he is a very, very talented player, and I also think that Durnville really benefits from Karim Adeyemi not lighting it up in his substitute appearance, because to me, Durnville, like, he wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, he just looked like a good 19-year-old rather than a really good player, and I think that's fair when it's his age, and I think he can become a very, very good player, but right now I don't think we've seen that, certainly in his starts. Um, I don't think I'm talking about him in my star dud of the week. I don't know if you guys want to have a quick word on his performance. Where do you think Durnville is, and if Borussia Dortmund fans need to temper their expectations on someone who is a wonder kid, but might not be ready to have a major impact on first team performances at this time?
He's young. He's very young. We've seen, I would say, a few glimpses of what he is capable of, but I think that there's still quite a bit of development there before he starts really making an impact in the first team. I don't really expect him to make a huge impact at this stage. I think he's more being used as a player because we lack a bit of depth, and when we're playing a match every 3 to 4 days. Um, just to keep players fit, we need to start utilizing some of these younger guys. While I still expect him to get some minutes, I don't see him really making a huge impact this season. I think if he keeps on with the trajectory he is on, then we will hopefully see him have a breakout season next year or next fall. Unless Dortmund decides that they want to sell him right as he's starting to get really good, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with Joey. I think Duranville is really young, and I think he needs his time to develop. But at the same time, he needs to be on the pitch to develop. So I think
Mhm.
it's good because he did showcase good performances this year. I think one that pops right out of my head right now is against Barcelona, especially the first half. He was pretty electric in that first half, give a lot of work to Barca
Mhm.
defenders. So I think you gotta give him time. I think we had the same conversation about Jamie Gittens last season. Like when he got in, he didn't have the same impact and he was not ready. But the season after that, he was a starter and probably one of most dangerous players in attacking position. So I think gotta give him time. I think the first worry he had before it's Juju staying healthy, which was a problem before, but right now he's managing to keep himself on the pitch. And it's gonna only gonna be natural. He's gonna have his time to develop and show why he can be a good contributor on the first team.
Yeah, and we've seen him show flashes of it even from the start of games against Barcelona, but it's not something I think he can sustain yet every single game. But moving forward, he does still have a very bright future, and we shouldn't forget that too early, and we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves and put too much pressure on him at this time. But let's get into our star of the week. Pedro, who is your star of the week?
I mean, if you guys read on my takeaways article on BBB Buzz or the Twitter of BBB Buzz, I kept complimenting Ben Sebaini way too much. I think I was a little bit biased on my analysis at that time, but I think it was fair. I think I had good arguments, and I even have some numbers here, like one assist, 64 correct passes from 76, one big chance created, two precise tackles, two clearances, 11 recoveries, six duels won from eight, only one foul, sorry, and 104 touches. I mean, it's a great performance, and I think that position, the midfield, that's where I like him the most, where he has good control in the ball from the middle, and he's not that. Um, I think he's good enough to do those overlaps when he's playing as a left wing back or being that more offensive guy. But I think with the ball in control in the midfield, I think he has been pretty solid, like in the past two games. And I think if we found a way to position him in the pitch that he can be a key contributor to give him more space also to Ryerson or Young Couto to drift forward, which are good traits for both of those players. And he was also not only good in the midfield, but I mean, coming back and to cover all that space, inverting the midfield, and then coming back to be the defender as a left back and just having a great performance overall. I think for me, Ben Sebaini is the clear star of the week for me.
Absolutely tremendous performance. You can question the positioning whenever a player goes into a slide tackle, but it is very fun to watch. Joey, who is your star of the week?
My star of the week, I've got to give it to our interim manager, Mike Toolberg, not just for the wins and the tactics, but for his passion, for the excitement that he brought, for getting us as fans excited about Borussia Dortmund again. Dortmund has been absolutely dreadful this calendar year, and seeing Mike Toolberg's celebration at the end of the match, I mean, it got me excited again. And I thoroughly believe that every season has, two or three moments where the images really stick in your head, and they're just like these famous moments that live on in Dortmund. And last season we had a couple of those scenes, like when Sabitzer scored against Atletico, or Marco Reus with the loudspeaker in front of all the Borussia Dortmund fans. And and this season, I think one of those scenes is Mike Toolberg pulling at his Dortmund hoodie, screaming his head off, running to the fans because of the sheer passion that he's exhibiting wearing Borussia Dortmund gear. So Mike Toolberg, kudos to your 3 games in charge, and yeah, brilliant star of my week. Star of the week. What was yours, Eli?
My star of the week, it's gonna be Sarah I could give it to Sarah Garassi again. I again just love watching him play. As soon as Shaheen left the club, he's been a different player. But Brian is a producer on this show, and I like appearing on this show. So I'll have to give it to Maxi Bayer because again, it's another striker getting on the end of big chances as soon as Nuri Shaheen's gone. Like, we really wasted so long on an obviously flawed candidate. I tried to be optimistic, but he's gone now. I can be very negative, my preferred state. Um, but to be positive, focus on Maxi Bayer. Like, he's getting in behind now. He's clearly given more license to do the things he's good at. I talked about this all season. Like, let this guy run in behind and he can be a difference maker. Like, people are saying that Jadon Sancho, like, 30 million pound transfer, it's not the same amount of money. Don't talk about it that way because you only, like, his wages are about half of what Sancho's on. Sancho's also a good player, but Maxi Bayer is a bit younger and he can be a real difference maker too for this club. Let's give him some time and let's see what he can really do now that we have, like, a more functional squad around him. He's getting in behind. He's doing, like, he's creating dangerous moments. And right there, as a number 9 in that number 9 position, he's acting as a poacher and getting on the end of a big chance. And that's what you want to see from a young striker. It just is a shame that we wasted the first half of the season. But let's get into the more negative aspects. Pedro, who's your dud of the week?
I have a few candidates, but I was trying to wrap my head around one. But I'll give to one. I mean, I didn't have like a clear like dud, but for me, Gross, as I said before in the beginning of the show about the tactics, I thought he was really like he had the freedom to move, but at the same time, I didn't see him contributing much with the game. Seems like he was just a passenger, like in the on the pitch, and the rest of the squad was connected, but Gross was a little bit out for me, and I think when also another aspect of the match that Gross is really good at it's set piece taking and corners. But what we've seen since Tulberg got into at the head coach is to put Ryerson in those positions, which has been pretty good. And Gross losing that role and still not being involved enough in the match for me, I don't think it's good enough for me. So for me, I think Pascal Gross is the for this week.
I think that's fair.
I think so too. I won't spend too long. I got to give my dud to Kareem this week. Just not a good enough performance. And like Pedro, I had a little trouble deciding on a dud. I think as a whole, the team did a pretty good job in these last couple matches. But for the sake of choosing one, I'm giving it to Adeyemi, and I expect him to be better next weekend.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to give it to the Bill journalists this morning, who were essentially commenting that Lars Ricken and Sebastian Kale were a little late to work, because Niko Kovac got there at 7:45, asked apparently a build photographer for directions, and then at like 8:14 and 8:17, Ricken and Kale pulled in and Build have been running these pieces for weeks, stating that this guy hasn't done any work. Borussia Dortmund's not active enough in the winter transfer market, and like that narrative's kind of gotten run with. And like, could earlier transfers have helped us and have been the difference? Yes, but you also want to try and play the hand of the market when that's most advantageous to you. I believe we saw some rumors about Chukwuemeka with an option to buy at 50 million earlier in the window, and truly extortionate loan fees on Viega and Chukwuemeka, and now we're just covering his full salary, which is 2 million Great British pounds for the second half of the season, which is much lower. You're not paying that considerable loan fee. If that deal is indeed happening. because at the time of recording, it seems like it's at the finish line, but these build reporters it's ridiculous because you gotta sack a manager, and then you sack the manager, you're out 5 million, potentially, um, which affects your budget pretty considerably because you have to pay off Shaheen, or you're holding him under contract, but you have to bring in the new manager, and we got in the new manager. He's ready to go in the first day after the first week we don't have a midweek match. That's when the manager came in, which is best for that manager. Tolberg obviously did great on short notice without really any training. So I'm excited to see what Kovac does, and I think some of the criticism of Kale is a little overrated because also a dollar spent in the January transfer window in a lot of cases can be a lot less effective because certain teams will just say no until the summer because they have their own goals, their own seasons to do. That's not to say you can't find value, but I think some of the signings we're about to talk about have been pretty good value, and I think that story is just being ridiculous, trying to stir up drama where there is a lot less drama, and Build might be a little unhappy that they're not getting certain leaks. So before we talk about these transfers, did this kind of surprise you at all? Some players that we weren't necessarily linked with heavily this window, and then we ended up signing them after a certain Sven Mislintat left the club. Joey?
Yeah, so if we want to talk about Daniel Svensson, I mean that's the first one. That is a
Well, let's just talk about the lack of leaks. Did that surprise you first?
no, we're talking about Mislintat. Um, if he's gone, I just expect fewer leaks. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty on Mislintat, but I'm not generally a fan of him. I respect the work that he's done and some of the recruiting that he's done over the years and the work he did at Stuttgart, but um, I'm not going to lose any sleep over a lack of Mislintat at Borussia Dortmund.
Too many
Yeah.
cooks in the kitchen. Pedro, can you elaborate?
I think Mistletoe, I mean, it was a okay hire. Like, I think his past actions in the Ajax and Arsenal, I think his background and the whole package that he brings on, of course, he brings good players. And we know that he has a good eye for a talent, but I mean, he's a little bit of a troublemaker, isn't he? Like, and even though it's Bill, like, when we can't take those reports 100% seriously, I mean, there's other guys that I've seen, like even Sky Sports, like Florian Plettenberg and Patrick Berger. They also have been some vaguely discussions on that relationship of Mr. Stad. I always mispronounce his name, but whatever. And also Sebastian Kell. And seems they really had a hard time. And honestly, I always thought Kell like wasn't the most to blame for the whole Dortmund situation this year.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that he has nothing to be blamed for, but I mean, I think from the ones that we can blame, he is not the biggest culprit. So in that sense, I would stick with Kel in that one, and I think his Mr. Stad, I can't say his name, sorry, but I don't. I think his time as Dortmund is basically
Sven.
over, and yeah, I mean, I think those leaks need to end, and I think if we cut that part of the board that it's causing more troubles than it should have, I think we might help the club a little bit in the transfer market in the future.
Yeah, when you're able to get in and quietly sign some of these guys, I think that's when you can see a lot more comfortable fees, a lot smaller fees, and part of that is going to be a lot easier to do when you're signing players from lower leagues who don't have these big money agents. But there's also an issue where you essentially sign a guy who's been a sporting director and been a club executive and a club director level position for the last 3-4 positions he's worked. Like Ajax, he was well above what Kale's current position is even. So this is a guy with an ego who has been used to working at a higher level position, and we brought him in the dumbest way. Very I've been critical of Watzke for that. I think it's his fault. But now that he's gone, you see better activity, and hopefully Kale can implement a coherent vision on the squad. Because if you look at the signings he has done, that's kind of where you could criticize him more, because the sales have been excellent. Getting off Fulkrug after he played way too many minutes last season, and he clearly, like I warned, got injured. Um, he's done some good work there, getting off Mullen, who clearly didn't want to be at Borussia Dortmund. But the issue is when you sign guys who are 28 and 33, and then 21 and 22, like you're gonna have guys peaking at different years, like Pascal Gross. This is the best Pascal Gross we're seeing for Borussia Dortmund. This could be the best Sergio Guirassy we're seeing for Borussia Dortmund. This is not the best Maxi Bayer we're going to see for Borussia Dortmund, and the same with Jan Koto. So he's got to figure out a little bit there, and let's get into some of the signings we did see, because all these guys are right around 20 to 23. They'll be peaking in the coming years, and let's start with the first guy to join. Joey's already leaked it, but Fabrizio Romano leaked it only a day before this one happened. It's Daniel Svensson. What do you guys know about this player, and what can we expect from him?
So he is Swedish. I think 22 years old, 23 years old, maybe.
22.
22. I wrote up a sort of the news piece for BVB Buzz yesterday for this, and I think I was texting Pedro, and that I know so little about this player. I know he's Swedish, and I know that we need defenders, so I think he's gonna fit that bill. But Pedro might know or have a little bit more of an in-depth assessment for us.
I'll be honest, I know as much as Joey, but I mean, we have been talking in the group chat a little bit, and I did some research. Actually, Joey wrote the article about him being confirmed. I wrote the original article on him being linked to Borussia Dortmund in the first place. I dig a little bit into him. Like he had, I think, from stats, he had 0 goals and 2 assists in all competitions. I think it was from like 17 matches, if I'm not mistaken. It was 16, 17 matches. I think you can check that out for me. But
the Danish, different sources on the Danish league, like when you get into some of these lower leagues, the publicly available data is just very inconsistent, because I found sources where he had 1 assist. I had sources where he had 2 this season. Last season, he was right around 2 goals, 8 assists.
Mhm.
But Pedro, I'll talk a little bit more about him after you.
No, it's all good. No, I remember it was transfer market. I think was one in the league and the other one was in the cup. But I mean, speaking of the player itself, from the stats that we share in the group chat this morning, and from what I've seen from him, I think he has a nice frame. I think physically speaking, he's really well shaped guy for like
6
a
foot.
23-year-old. Yeah, so I think he has physical promise, and he's really good in progressive carries in that sense. So he can carry the ball with his fitness. I haven't seen that many good stats, or at least exciting stats, in terms of possession and finding those cutting line passes. So in that sense, I think he's more of a physical profile and a guy who can carry us forward with his physical abilities. But I think it's still to be seen how much he can contribute in possession and help us. But I think he has also really good defensive numbers from what I remember. So I think it's a nice signing, not that expensive, and from a club that has a track record of bringing up good talent from Sweden to the world and to European football. So I think it's a good signing, low risk, but we can have a really decent reward with this guy.
Yeah, it's, I believe, loan with an option. The details on this one aren't entirely clear, but it's going to end up, I think, right in between 7 and 10 million euros. The wages should be fairly low at 22. Loan with an option, like that is perfect. That's like a 0 risk signing, because the loan fee and the loan wages will be so low, and then even if you make the purchase, he's very low. I think he is better technically than Pedro's giving him credit for, although it is always hard to know when you're playing in the Danish league, because the pressing and all that, like you just have so much more time on the ball than you will in the Bundesliga. But he can dribble, he takes corners, which you have to have like a certain minimum of technical ability to do those things. He played central midfield a little bit last year, but this year he heat map is a lot more focused on the left-hand side. And with his size, you do see like the potential for him to be good in the air. He's currently below average in terms of his aerial duel win rate. But I think at 22, 6 feet tall, that's like 185 centimeters. Um, I think he'll be fine there at like by the time he reaches his peak age. I really like his kind of just all around game. I would profile him similarly to Julian Ryerson. He's going to be good in the duels he competes. He's not going to make a ton of them. He's not going to be an exceptionally flashy player, but if he hits the ground and his skills fully translate, uh, he will be decent at everything, and he will be an excellent like squad player as a left back. But at 22, he still can get a lot better and go on to be a very good player. I don't know if I would expect anything superstar level from Daniel Svensson, but let's get into the next signing, which is I think that this one's confirmed. It's Deont, I believe. This one's gonna be hard. Is it the hard J? Is it the soft J? We'll find out soon. It's Deont Ramai. I'm gonna go with. Formerly of Ajax, he was a starter last season. This season hasn't featured too much. Just once with the senior team and 4 or 5 times with the Eerste division team, which is Ajax's second team. What do you guys know about this guy?
I don't know if I'm really a huge fan of this transfer, to be honest. In one sense, well, for one thing, I had never heard of the guy until, I don't know, this morning, yesterday maybe. Um, but I'm a little bit confused in terms of why we're seeking a keeper right now, unless there is legitimate fear over Gregor Kobel leaving, at which point we still do have, I mean, we have Alex Meyer, we have Lotka, and then some youth players who could come up. But bringing in an additional goalkeeper to then immediately put out on loan is also a little confusing, because if we think that there's a legitimate chance that Kobel might leave this summer, then my hope would be our scouts would be out there to find a solid replacement to be that first team keeper. And I don't think that Ramaj, I'm not sure, we'll find out pronunciation soon. I don't really think that he's going to be that Borussia Dortmund first team keeper. So I guess, overall, I'm just a little confused on this one, and don't necessarily think that it's the position that we need to be going for right now.
No, I agree with Joey because I mean, like the whole Kobo situation. Like I think we have a debate last podcast, me and Eli, about Kobo and how like we'd be considering like a sale for him, and especially if Dortmund doesn't get any European competitions. Like if he wants to go somewhere else, and there's a really good proposal, maybe like 8 million euros. I think we have to think about it, especially because depending on the next manager, of course, we have Kovic now. But if you wanted a manager that wanted to play more with the keeper with the ball on his feet, I think Kobo does not fit the profile of that. Speaking of Ramaj, is precisely I'm not really sure about the transfer as well as much as I think I agree with everything that Joey said, and even for squad like or there's like something that we don't know that Kobo might be
Hmm.
going, or like even though if he's going, if that's the case, like I don't think that's the guy who is really gonna be like the substitute, or at least that, not in my opinion at the moment. But hopefully he's gonna be a good signing. He's gonna go to Copenhagen to the end of the season. In terms of depth, like we also, as Joey said, we have Lotka, we have Meyer until 2026. So it doesn't really make any sense to sign a guy of that profile right now that's not even going to play in the first team right after signing it. So I'm a little bit confused with that one as well, and I'm curious to see how that's going to play out for. Then I think for summer, I think that's going to be even more interesting to see how what's going to happen with Ramaj, if he's going to stick with the squad, and especially what's the COVID situation is going to be at that point in time.
Well, I think the rumored price is 5 million, which feels a little high for a guy that's not playing for Ajax, but at 23 years old, he is still fairly young. And what it kind of allows Dortmund to do at that risk is you're not really having a ton of risk because he's going to be sold on at the very worst. Like, one of the questions I might ask you is, do you think this guy ends up playing a match for Borussia Dortmund? I'm not 100% sure, but what I do think this transfer allows you to do is, let's say you sell Gregor Kobel, given he's being loaned to Denmark, he should have a very good season in Denmark. And then let's say you need that more expensive Gregor Kobel uh, goalie because Ramai hasn't developed to the level you want. Then when you're going out and you're looking to make a purchase that's 5 million at least less in leverage the other team has, because you can say, well, we do like our current in-house option. Whereas Laka is gone in the summer, he's likely not going to a Bundesliga club. He'll either find a better third tier or a second tier club um, to go play for. But like, he's not at that level for our first team. I've seen him in the third tier. He did not impress me. Some of the goals we've conceded haven't really impressed me there. And the same could be said for some of the academy guys, like Ostrazinski's playing in the third tier. Like, this is a guy that, like, Bayern Munich, for instance, have what's his name over at Stuttgart right now, who's on loan, and he's like a good option where if they can't get their like go-to target when Neuer retires, or if Neuer falls off a cliff, they can just recall him from loan and he'll be there. Or if they need to go out and sign a guy, they can say, look, we have this Champions League goalie. If you give us a ridiculous fee, we're just gonna go with him because we don't need you. And that to me is what Ramai can hopefully provide us. And that little extra bit of leverage can be a 5 million difference to us. But let's move on to the next guy. And this one seems to basically be confirmed. And that's Carney Chukwuemeka. What do you guys kind of think about this one? Because this has got people spinning.
I mean, this is an interesting one. I mean, because he's so expensive. And I guess I would, first off, this is a loan deal with an option to buy at the end of the season, but I believe that option is also a release clause, which would presumably be available to anyone, and it's in the range of 40 plus million euros. So I mean, I think Chukwuemeka, apologies if I butchered that pronunciation. I think he'll be a reasonable reinforcement to our midfield, but I don't see him staying at Dortmund beyond this season. I think it would take a truly special player for Dortmund to then decide to break their transfer record again to sign somebody. So for folks watching the rest of this season, I would just caution against falling in love with this player because we may find ourselves in a situation where this guy is awesome, but there's no possible way we're actually going to keep him at the end of the season. Because then if he has great performances with us, there will be other clubs who are going to want to come in and snatch him up for 50, 60 million because the Premier League just overprices everything. But I think he is a decent profile to step in and again act as a bit of a reinforcement to the midfield.
Yeah, the Ian Madsen complex. Been there, done that. Yeah, I know, but I learned from my mistake. And honestly, I think it's a interesting signing. I think he's a young profile, as we said before, like 40 million, like price tag after the loan deal is done. I think that's pretty much done. Like we're not gonna get him after that, so it's just gonna be a straight loan. I think there's even like speculation that Chelsea was trying to make things difficult. Just wanted a straight loan, don't want to put any like buy option there. So clearly, putting 40 million buy option is the clear statement. We're not gonna sell him to you. Here's an option that you guys obviously not gonna pay. So deal with that. And that's basically going to be it. I like the profile young player. I think it's very promising young player, and yeah, that's the kind of profile we needed with Match's injury, and I think he's going to be a really useful option in midfield to be a rotation guy, and just to take the weight off the guys who are already there, like the more veteran guys like Pascal Gross and Sabitzer. So I think it's an interesting signing. I don't really like the idea of being that kind of club that just basically gives Chelsea like a long periods to their guys so they can just sell for more money later in the next window. Don't really like to be that club. I think Dortmund is bigger than that, greater club than that. And it's just unfortunate on the Chelsea side because I really think, and I even gave them that nickname, it's a cemetery of talents. They buy so many young players with so much upside and talent just to be wasted on the bench or just being forgotten like in their ranks. So in that sense, it's really frustrating for like having so many talents there, none of them being utilized. But hopefully, Carney can be an interesting guy for us.
I think this is a case of Felix Mecha being injured, and I think that it's going to end up being a little bit more severe than we had hoped. And if he's going to be out for a considerable time, you really need, like, we got away with, and I talked about this before, like, Sabitzer and Gross, you can probably get away with that against a lot of the lower half of the Bundesliga, but we have big games coming up, and in these big games, you're going to need someone with athleticism in your midfield. And right now, the most athletic guys that we have that can play midfield and have gotten more than 5 minutes in a game this season are Sally Özcan and Emre Can. And we're going to be paying a guy like 2 million Great British pounds for the next 6 months, which is going to end up right around like 2.4-ish million euros for reference, which is considered like very little to us. So for very little, we're getting a lot of cover, a lot of athleticism, and a guy who's a decent passer. Uh, he's not necessarily ever shown that he's an elite passer yet. That's something that comes with age. Do I think we take the option to buy? No, but like this guy's like a pretty well thought of talent. If he shows off for the next 6 months, then maybe I bet against it, but I think the odds are there. And at the amount of risk, like the way I would see it and phrase it as a Borussia Dortmund fan is I want to be getting surplus value for every dollar my club spends, and for what his wages are for the situation we're in, I think there is a very good chance we can extract surplus value over the next 6 months because we can fill in a very big hole with the loss of athleticism we just had in our midfield. We play a double pivot with the guy we're about to talk about next. We're gonna be clearly playing a 10 for the next like 3 to 5 years if we sign that guy. And so we need to play a double pivot. We have no athletes in there. We don't have a lot of passing. This guy can come in, do a minimum, and is going to be paid, or the club is spending less on him than they would spend on other guys. And if he's the guy, then they can go out, spend a club record fee, get him in the summer. If he's not the guy, then that's fine, and we don't clog up a spot on a guy that's not the future of this club and not going to be the guy in the midfield pulling the strings, leading us to titles. But let's get into the last guy we need to talk about, and that is the fan favorite of Borussia Dortmund Twitter. That's Rayan Cherki. Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll let you take this one, Pedro.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm really excited with the possibility of having a guy like Turkey. And we were even doing like a podcast with Brian, and he came up with a question that we were linked to like two attacking midfielders. I think it was McCarty and from City, and also Milo from Stuttgart. And he just asked me like, if you had a chance to sign one of those guys, who would it be? I might be mistaken one of the names. I think I'm not sure about McCarty, but I think Milo was
McAtee.
there. McCarty. Yeah, my pronunciation is not very good today, but yeah, the guy from Manchester City. And I answer straightforward. Neither. I would bring Turkey from Lyon, and with the prospects of having a guy like that with his creativity and just thinking out of the box, it's just like you don't see a guy like that anywhere in football nowadays. It's a little bit of a he's an enganche, as they say in Argentina, a guy who really like make everything tick in the midfield and find those passes like a Maradona kind of guy. Like they also had a guy called Riquelme in Argentina who also played for Barcelona, who is one of the greatest enganches. And I think Turkey is that kind of profile, like the creative guy that can find passes that no one expects him to find. And to have a guy like that with such a short amount of price, like 22.5 million, sorry, I think is a real opportunity for Dortmund that I think if he had a better contract situation and would be more stable at his club, we probably would never have a chance to sign him if it wasn't for the current situation with his contract and the whole gentleman's agreement he has with Lyon of being sold in this winter if the right opportunity comes up. So I think it will be great for us to have him. I think we're gonna sign him. I think that's my gut feeling telling me he's coming to Dortmund to play at the Signal Iduna Park, and I'm really excited with those prospects. I really hope he comes.
And I'll play, I guess, devil's advocate a little bit, because I do like Turkey. I think if that deal goes through at 22.5 million, that would be great. We could really use another attacking mid option in the midfield, especially since we sent Donny Malen out. I'm not 100% sure that this deal is going to go through. I thought we were gonna sign this guy over the summer, and then that fell apart because the powers that be couldn't get along. Um, it's getting down to deadline day, and I might eat these words in a couple days because we'll know for sure once this podcast comes out. But it sounds like the owner of Olympic Lyon, right? Is not really happy with all of the transfer speculation, with the fact that it seems like things are progressing toward a Turkey move. And I just, in the back of my mind, have this hankering. It's this feeling that somehow this transfer is going to get blocked. That, maybe if we entered concrete negotiations 2 weeks ago, we could pull it off. I still think this player is going to come to Dortmund. I'm just not 100% sure that we're going to pull this off by deadline day. And it may be a transfer that waits till the summer. But I hope I'm wrong in that. And, like Pedro said, really hope that this guy does come here.
Yeah, the issue with this transfer would kind of be you have to pay the money up front, because otherwise, and I would kind of like John Texter to default on his loan payment, um, or his debt payments, whatever it is. The guy that got RWD Molenbeek relegated, got them into some financial issues, has done some weird financial things with Olympique Lyon. Shout out to my girlfriend for teaching me how to pronounce French things with a modicum of self-respect. But basically, the issues with Cherky, the player, it's a lot of off the field stuff. We don't have specific details. If I read French as well as my girlfriend, I could go on Reddit and I'm sure find out a little bit more or some of the conspiracy theories about it. But we do know there are off the field issues because people with sources have talked about them. I don't know how serious they are. Um, this is a guy who's been very highly rated for a very, very long time, and he has bundles and bundles of talent. He does not have bundles and bundles of physical ability, and that would just lead me to question how much of what he is doing is reliant on that physical ability. His dribble success rate was one of the things I looked at in there, and that's at 55%, which leads me to say that, okay, if that comes down a little bit, which it will in the Bundesliga, because better defenders in the Bundesliga than League One, he'll still be a good player. And the question to me is, like, his floor is definitely below Julian Brandt's floor, because Julian Brandt played in a side that was horrific, and he's only 2 goal involvements behind Cherky, who's playing Europa League opponents, and with the expanded UCL format, that means the Europa League teams are a lot worse, and he's playing in a much worse league. But he also has played less minutes. He is younger. He should get better. He's already an excellent passer, and he should get better as a passer with age. So there's a lot to love about his talent. But short term, like, is this something that needs to happen with Gio Reyna? Like, if his contract's up in 2026, so like there's going to be even less time on that in the summer. The amount of debt that Lyon have, it doesn't go away in this transfer window. It doesn't go away in the summer, because they're going to continuously need to meet those loan payments. So that's always worth considering. Like, when is the time this needs to happen? Is he the difference between us getting Champions League football and not? Quite possibly. So you might want to do it now, and I could fully understand if the club does it now. But if the club thinks that they can get a better deal in the summer, and maybe that's what they go for, I'd do this now if I could. But John Textor is an absolute moron, and these guys clearly don't have a good relationship, because John Textor likely leaked the texts that we're talking about, the failed move. Maybe right now in the media he's just posturing, and they have been talking or talking through intermediaries, because as we record this, the day we record this, Marseille-Lyon is a derby match, and that derby occurred today. So he doesn't want to be seen as selling his star player the same day as the match against their derby rivals. So it could be that. It could be posturing. I don't know. I like the player. I like the talent. I think there are issues there that people aren't talking about, but I do think he's very good. I've talked way too much. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the player? Okay, well, we've had a very busy episode. I know where they can find your work, but can you tell them where to find your work?
Don't worry too much about following my personal pages, but check out BVB Buzz. Pedro and I are both putting out articles. We've got some exciting stuff coming out this week. Pedro's got an article coming out all about Niko Kovac. I've got one upcoming about Borussia Dortmund's return to the soccer tournament, TST, in North Carolina. And just stay tuned, because we're bringing on some new writers, going to have some fresh voices in the near future. And for all things Borussia Dortmund, check out BVB Buzz on all the socials.
Yeah,
Pedro.
the old one stopped writing.
No, yeah, sure. I think everything Joey said, and not only BBB Buzz, please don't forget to follow Dortmund Dispatch in all social media, please.
Yes.
Listen to our podcast and rate them in our favorite streaming platform. And it was a great episode, and hopefully we see each other next weekend as well with a win against Stuttgart. And yeah, hopefully with some signings. I think Joey and I is gonna have a little bit of work tomorrow to write a bunch of articles about the deadline day.
I think
And you can watch our live stream this weekend, where we're going to be watching VfB Stuttgart play against the greatest club in the world. So we'll see you there, Twitch and YouTube. But yeah, that'll do it for us. Have a good one.
Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond
Jetzt
compare.
kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!